every little bar.
Let our love shine a light in every corner of our heart.
So I'm Kenneth Palliam, the Vice President of the chapter. Kindly note that the session is being recorded and minutes will be minuted. So firstly, please join me for a moment of silence as we collectively reflect on those that have lost their lives due to the coronavirus pandemic, those that are ill, and those healthcare workers working at the front line, risking their lives. Thank you. So when I learned that the networking session was going to be a virtual wine tasting, I thought that it would be appropriate to have a drinking game. But because we are responsible citizens and law-abiding citizens and socially responsible, your drink of choice can be water, tea, coffee, or anything that you fancy. So take a moment to grab your drink of choice. You'll need 2 glasses or cups or whatever, depending on your beverage of choice. So my presentation has been deliberately loaded with catchphrases of the day. So if you hear a catchphrase or word, take a sip out of glass number 1. My colleagues were not informed of this. So if they do use a catchphrase or word, take a drink or a sip from glass or cup number 2. Hopefully everybody's clear in terms of the rules. So I trust that everyone is keeping well during these uncertain times with working from home and social distancing being the new normal. As mentioned, this is our first virtual AGM. Due to the coronavirus pandemic and the consequent lockdown, we as a chapter had to pivot and fast track our digital strategy. To date, we have hosted a number of virtual webinars, and we plan on hosting our first virtual conference on the 3rd and the 4th of August. I'm sure you would have received emails to that effect. The AGM is an important event in our annual calendar. It is an opportunity to reflect on the year that was from both an operational and financial perspective. Arlene, our president, will talk to the annual report, which was also shared via email. Francois, our treasurer, will provide a high-level summary of our financial results, which have been audited. The complete set of financials are available on our Engage website. Besides looking backwards, we will also look forward, as Francois will also present 2020 budget for approval. Additionally, we will have the inauguration of the 2020-2022 Board of Directors. A reminder that if you have any questions, please make use of the Q&A function or the chat screen, And as the program unfolds, I will try to address as many of these questions as possible. Formal responses to these questions will also be provided in the CPE email. So without further ado, I would like now to hand over to Arlene for her presentation. Over to you, Arlene.
I'm so sorry. I thought I was on mute there and I was trying to unmute myself. Are you able to see my screen or Francois' screen? All good? Okay, let's continue. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Friday to you as well. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm not sure if I caught the rules that of Kenneth's game, but we can try it a bit later again. Today, I'll try to be brief while giving you a comprehensive taste of what we've been up to for the past year. So as we wind down the month of May, it is gratifying to see that despite being challenged by COVID-19 and the lockdown, many Isaca members have settled into a new routine and are seamlessly doing what they do best. We are encouraged by the attendance at our online events. The attendance has been quite high, and we encourage you to stay connected and keep supporting the Isaca South Africa chapter. I'd like to encourage you to visit our website where we've loaded the annual report for 2019. It was a great effort to pull this report together and have it approved by the Board of Directors before this meeting today. I would like to thank the Board of Directors and everyone involved for their contributions to the annual report. Francois, I'm struggling to control your screen. There we go. I'm not sure if that was me or you. Okay. At our previous AGM, the theme was adjusting our sails. This year, we have chosen a theme of unity is strength. This speaks to us pulling together as a team and turning any challenge into an opportunity to think differently and to deliver differently, to display the best virtues of our humanity. And it also speaks to the notion of us being stronger together. So I would encourage members to please have a look at the annual report. It has much more detail than what I will go through today. Okay, so in terms of the content, I think I want to touch on the strategy as well as the achievements and some opportunities for the chapter. And then I want to talk to you a bit about us internally, the office, our volunteer network, and our board of directors and subcommittees. And then in terms of external facing activities, a little update around our training and events for the past year, corporate social responsibility activities, and our journey with SACWA. But before I get there, I think it's important as members that we reflect on our purpose and our promise. Our purpose is to help you realize the positive potential of technology, and our promise is to inspire confidence that enables innovation through technology. Everything we do at the chapter is underpinned by our purpose and our promise, as well as our core values. So the one value that we advertise quite well on our social media is we are one. You'll often see under posts hashtag we are one. But there are other values as well, and I just wanted to remind you of these. Okay, Francois, if you can page down, please. So our core values are: we are one, we are accountable, we stand behind the work that we do and the contributions we make in society, in our organizations, in industry, in the world. We are dedicated, we are unfailingly passionate about Isaca, we are authentic, we operate with honesty and integrity, trust and respect is our operational foundation, and we are innovative. We thrive on being creative and innovative, and we take measured risks. So these are our values. If you want, print it out, put it up at your desk, in your house, because this is what we buy into when we buy into membership of Isaca. Okay, Francois, thank you. So at the start of the 2018 term for the Board of Directors, we set out our vision for the 2 years, and the vision was for Isaca South Africa to be the leading professional organization in South Africa for business leaders in technology, information security and cybersecurity, governance, risk and innovation. That's a mouthful. I hope it resonates with you. You can ponder on this and send us your feedback afterwards, after this event. We also set out some strategic pillars. So we said that, you know, our vision will be achieved through a growing membership, a sustainable organization, a high membership retention rate, effective communication, and excellence in everything we do. This is Vision 2020, which will probably need to be refreshed soon. So we're open to your ideas on what we should be focusing on as a chapter. Please feel free to send them through to info@isaca.org.za. But moving on, for this vision and for the strategic pillars we identified, we also defined focus areas and outcomes. Okay, it's the next slide. So for the growing membership, we said that we want to appeal to a young pipeline of talent by introducing or increasing the number of student members and recent graduates. We also said that we want to grow our membership in the public sector, and our target that we set out was to achieve a membership of 2,500 members in the country. Under the high member retention rate, we said that we wanted to achieve an 80% retention rate. We wanted to host 2 successful conferences. We wanted to make sure that the membership is actively engaged and involved in chapter activities. And then we wanted to receive positive and favorable responses from our membership surveys. And then under effective communication, we said we would like to identify 2 new publications and advertise in these publications. We wanted to attract at least 100 new members through these new advertising channels. And then we wanted to have an extended reach on social media platforms. Under excellence, we said that we wanted to promote the value proposition of Isaca and provide members with real value in the form of thought leadership tools and resources. Within the office, we wanted to improve the membership or member query response time to 48 hours and then get positive feedback from exam preparation and support. And in the last pillar, sustainable organization, we said that we wanted to achieve increased revenues through membership growth and hosting paid events, and at the same time, practice prudent spending and better procurement processes to achieve decreased expenses, relatively speaking. These were the outcomes that we set out, and as a chapter, we've really done well in achieving these strategic objectives. So if I mention some of our achievements, and there are many, these are some of them. So for 2019, if we just look back at the past year, we hosted the first time ever a successful Africa CACS conference in South Africa. I feel like if I was, talking to you in person, this would deserve a round of applause. The conference was there also to celebrate Isaca's 50th anniversary. We also hosted the first time ever COVID 2019 conference in March 2019. We hosted the chapter awards for the third year running. We had very good member survey results, above average, above the global average for Isaca. We also launched the CXO dinner, which was a key stakeholder dinner, and we had an address from the new Isaca CEO, David Samuelson. We hosted 2 She Leads Tech events, and then we had multiple exam top scorers across all our certifications, and we acknowledged them. We also had renewed partnerships, and in some cases new partnerships, with some MOUs that are still in progress. We have improved our financial disciplines, and Francois will tell you more about that in a minute. And we've also improved our internal governance and operational procedures, with the board approving over 20 policies. Some of these policies are available on the website, so I encourage you to have a look and also to give us feedback on whether there are any improvements that we can do on those policies. We also were very innovative. So in the academic liaison portfolio with Gerald, we are offering an incentive to students who want to join the chapter, and we're doing this through the academic advocates. And in Nomashni's marketing portfolio, we also reached out through the Africa Rising campaign. We reached out to young professionals to attract them to the chapter. And then finally, we hosted multiple regional events in Gauteng, Pretoria, Gauteng, PE, Western Cape, KZN, and East London. All of this is mentioned in detail in the annual report, so I encourage you to have a read. Okay, thank you, Francois. So in terms of opportunities, these are some of the opportunities that are available to the chapter, but there are so many more. And as we get more member volunteers, more hands, we can do more together. So these are just some of them. So the one opportunity we've been working on is that we've successfully registered as an accredited training organization with Isaca Global. And this means that we can now train and host chapter trainers. The idea is that if we have more accredited trainers within the chapter, we can offer more workshops, training workshops, exam prep workshops to members, and that would increase the number of certified individuals in South Africa, which speaks to our strategic objectives. So an accredited training organization is offered through Isaca's partnership with the APMG, and it gives members certainty that our training and our training material is of a high quality and up to Isaca's standards. This is part of Isaca's initiative to do away with what they term grade trainers. I'll speak a bit later about this, but we've also made good progress in terms of our recognition as our application for recognition as a professional services body in South Africa. And then once we have the recognition from SACWA, the next step would be recognition of our certifications with a QCTO. So the idea with this opportunity is that we want our certifications to have an NQF rating. The fourth opportunity that I'm mentioning is the rollout of COVID 2019 to government institutions. We've had initial conversations with the DPSA but there's much more work to be done to reach government institutions through the GTOs with COVID 2019. And then the last thing that that I've identified as an opportunity is for us to take advantage of enterprise offerings from Isaca. So there's a new director for enterprises at Isaca Global, and we're looking at how Isaca can be relevant at an organizational level. These are just some of the opportunities for the chapter, as I've said. Thank you, Francois. Okay, so internally, it warms my heart to tell you about Esther and Andri. So Esther is our finance and office manager. Andri is our marketing and events coordinator. And then this year we welcomed Sarah, who assists us with the Gauteng events. You might have met them at one of the regional events or any of the other events that we've offered. Their office hours are from 9 to 3. At the achievements of the chapter, and you look at how small the office is, I think they are really doing an excellent job as the engine that basically pushes the chapter forward. So thank you very much, Esther, Andri, and Sarah, for everything that you do for the chapter. The achievements are also supported through a number of volunteers. All of the members of the board and the board subcommittees, so this is the scholarship committee, the conference committee, the audit and risk committee, and the social and ethics committee. I've mentioned them all. They are all volunteers. These are people who work very hard during the day and work for Isaca at night. Many members asked me if it's a paid position. It's not a paid position. We are all volunteers, and most members or board members and board subcommittee members are doing this out of sheer passion. We also have a number of micro volunteers who assist on various tasks from time to time. And over the past year, I just want to thank all the volunteers who have assisted the chapter in various activities and initiatives. And we also wanted to thank all the meeting venue hosts and speakers at the many events that we've offered throughout the year. So our board of directors has been very effective. I think one of the things we could still do is to actually do a board effectiveness survey. But if I reflect, and I'm sure if the board of directors reflects on the journey, we've activated the board subcommittees, and the board subcommittees have been effective in their mandates as well. There are terms of reference for all the board subcommittees. The board of directors meet every last Thursday of the month. And then we also have 2 board strategy meetings for the year. For both of those meetings, we've had a board coach who's joined the sessions, and we have good challenge and good discussions. I think we have a diverse and effective board, and we bond so well together, and the diversity just helps with getting to a better outcome. So I think in terms of effectiveness with the office, the volunteers, and the board of directors and board subcommittees, that's how we've been able to achieve so much. Thanks, Francois. Okay, so external facing. So we've hosted 25 regional events for the year. I've looked at the membership database, and it's quite spread out, so we don't reach all the regions where there are members, but we reach the major regions. And now with us offering online events, I think those members who typically, maybe we didn't have a meeting in your region, now you would be able to attend events. We hosted 3 year-end events in Gauteng, KZN, and in the Western Cape, and they were all successful. We hosted the CXO dinner, as I've mentioned, 2 She Let's Tech events. We had a joint seminar, Isaca SA and the ACFE SA in June in 2019, and the March COVID 2019 conference. So that's quite a full plate, for the chapter. I think we've done well. Then in corporate social responsibility, that Mandela Day is celebrated on the 18th of July every year. And the objective of Mandela Day is to inspire individuals to take action to help change the world for the better. And in doing so, build a global movement for good. On the 18th of July, we participated in the Food Forward SA initiative. The chapter offered an opportunity for members and directors to provide 67 minutes to pack food parcels for those in need. We went to the CTICC and we had lots of fun while giving back. In terms of, Isaca hosted the first ever community day on the 5th of October. And this was a 24-hour event across the world with all Isaca chapters participating. The Isaca South Africa chapter worked in participation with an organization called Math Moms, who we had also supported earlier in the year for Mandela Day. And we arranged for the grade 2 learners from Valhalla Park Primary School to visit the Cape Town Science Centre. The event was coined Love for Technology, and it allowed the children to look at the world with new eyes. For many of them, this was really eye-opening. They wrote the most precious thank you letters for the chapter, and we will still put it up in our office as something to remember. We encourage the members and volunteers to diarize the 3rd of October this year for the Community Day activities. We haven't identified a charity yet, so if you have ideas on any technology related or science or maths related charity, please let us know. Oh, sorry, and for COVID-19, I almost forgot. For COVID-19, we contributed 10,000 Rand towards the Government Solidarity Fund. And we also contributed 10,000 Rand to Math Moms, where the volunteers could buy food parcels for all of the Math Mom volunteers. Okay, this is a little bit around SAQA. It took us a while to understand the interrelated landscape within SAQA. These are slides from an information session that we attended at SAQA House in Pretoria. It takes a long time to explain, and I think we can actually host a webinar just to bring you along on the SAQA journey and what we are trying to achieve as a chapter. I think we submitted our application in October last year to be recognized as a professional body with professional designations. In a nutshell, our objective is to increase our relevance and credibility in South Africa, to create pride in South Africa chapter members, and to create a proudly South African, well-respected community of professionals. If we go to the next slide, another slide from the SAQA information session. Basically, it's a minimum of a 5-month journey. And like I said, we submitted our application in October. We are currently at the site visit stage. So our site visit was supposed to happen on the 23rd of April, but with the lockdown, this will be rescheduled. Once we complete the site visit successfully, and I'm sure we will, the next stage will be the government gazetting process. This is a great achievement so far, and we're hoping for a successful outcome. Thank you, Francois. Yeah, so back to unity is strength. There's so many quotes around, stronger together, and I've put a few down on this page. I'm really proud of the chapter and what we have achieved with the support of the members, the board of directors, the board subcommittee, the office, the volunteers, the business partners. We are great because we are great together. And I've just got a little video to end off my presentation. Thank you so much for attending the AGM, and that's my summary. So, Francois, if you can just kick off the video for us. Thank you.
Love, shine a light in every corner of my heart. Let the love light carry, let the love light carry. Lord of the magic in every little part. Let our love shine a light in every corner of our heart. Love, shine a light in every corner of my dream. Let the love light carry, let the love light carry. Like the mighty river flowing from the stream. Let our love shine a light in every corner of my dream. And we're all gonna shine a light together. Oh, shine a light away. Brothers and sisters in every little part. So let our love shine a light in every corner of our heart. Shine a light in every corner of my heart. Let the love light carry. Let the love light carry. Heart of the magic in every little part. Let our love shine a light in every corner of our heart. Love, shine a light in every corner of the world. Let the love light carry. Let the love light carry. Light up magic for every boy and girl. Let our love shine a light in every corner of the world. And we're all gonna shine a light together. Oh, shine a light to light the way. Brothers and sisters in every little part. Let our love shine a light in every corner of our heart. Love, shine a light in every corner of my heart. Let the love light carry. Let the love light carry. Light up the magic in every little part.
Thanks, everybody. Kenneth, is it okay if I start?
Yes, it is. Thanks, Francois.
Yeah, so I've got the pleasure of presenting the financial report and also the budget for the 2020 year. I'm actually not in broadcasting, so I'm going to try and do my best. Just in terms of financial controls, we always just want to give the members comfort that our financial controls are quite tight. Even though we actually don't work with a lot of money, if you would think that we're not a big company, we're actually just a chapter. So essentially, some of our financial controls, what we do have is we have a financial manager in the office, and that's Esther. So previously we were a bit light on the financial management skills, but now we've got somebody who's qualified in that line, and that's helped us a whole lot. And just the assurance that every single expense is approved. There's an approval framework. The president and the VP and the board approves expenses. And then in terms of payments, only the treasurer can actually release payments on the net bank system. And then for the last 2 years, we've had an audit committee. The audit committee has been quite active and they challenge us on quite a few things. And also ask questions about our strategy in terms of where we're going, our controls, our risks, and our financials, and also the budget. For the last 2 years, we had Nexia, who's been our auditors, and we've got a very good working relationship with them. Triton is still our accountants. So we use them to support us, especially when it comes to providing us with a financial system. They run our payroll, they do our taxes, and they also do our accounting entries. And sometimes they also assist us, for example, during peak periods where we have invoicing backlogs, or we might need to collect debtors from members. We do have a financial pack that we produce monthly and that we send to the board, and then it's also discussed at the board meetings. Board meetings often take up to 3 hours, sometimes up to 3 hours to complete once a month, and a good half an hour and sometimes an hour is spent on financial matters in those meetings. So we do also have a budget. The financial pack helps us track against budget. In terms of that, we have a Pastel online accounting system that we use. And then we also have a very strong debt collection process. I'm pleased to say that most of the debt has been collected so far from our conferences. We're still struggling with a few items. Things are a bit difficult at the moment with COVID and all of that. And then one of our key activities that we also do is we keep a lookout for our foreign exchange and also our cash flow, because as you know, our revenue that we collect in terms of member dues comes from the US. It's collected online. People pay it to the US directly. So whenever we run out of local funds, we bring those funds over from overseas. And that's especially, it especially becomes important to have a look at our cash flow when we start making those big payments for the conferences and deposits and so on. So I'm very pleased to actually present the financials for the year. We had a good year. It was a very interesting year, and it could easily have been a very challenging financial year. So what I'd like to do is to start just on the right-hand side. If you have a very good look at the conference income, you might ask yourself, why is it so little? The fact is, what has happened this year is that being the 50th anniversary year of Isaca, the United States came to us and said they would actually like to host the Africa CACS conference as a celebration in Johannesburg. So our conference is the biggest African conference by far, compared to some of the other territories. And so it made sense to them, and it was also a good marketing opportunity for the Africa CACS conference. The challenge that there was is that the United States says that they want us to defer, or let's just say they wanted us to sell the rights to the conference to them. We explained to them quite vigorously how important the conference is to our finances, and in the end they gave us a grant of almost $1 million actually, in rand value. It was actually $65,000 to compensate us, and then in turn they would have the rights to run the conference, and they would actually then source or receive all the revenue, and they would pay all the expenses. So for one full year, the conference would then defer to them. So what you see here is the reduced conference income, and that is essentially the grant. It was actually not, it actually worked in our favor a little bit because our expenses were obviously, we had no expenses or meaningful expenses, except for those expenses that we had to cover locally. So this was an exceptional year in 2019 in terms of the conference. Jumping back to membership dues, I've explained in previous sessions that the challenge that we have as a local chapter is that when you look at your Isaca invoice, you would see there's a part of the invoice that's stated as local chapter dues, and it's plus minus $50 normally, depending on whether it's early bird or not early bird. But that's the only amount that goes to South Africa. And if you look at yourself and the way you look at the chapter, you actually look at the local chapter for a lot of the value add that you get from Isaca. And often when you think of yourself and you ask questions, I mean, what value do I get? You tend to look at the local chapter in terms of that. Whereas actually most of the member revenue or the member dues goes to the United States. And it's typically up to 3/4 of that. So what we did is we increased our member dues again for the second year by between $5 and $10, depending on the type of member. And it worked. That little increase of $5 and $10 has a massive effect on our revenue, and it gave us a boost of up to 24% in our membership dues. And coupled with the weakening of the rand, because it is international income, it actually worked in our favor quite a lot. So in terms of revenue, we actually did quite well this year. And I'll show you in terms of the expenses just now. So if you look at the middle part of the slideshow, you can see the conference expenses is usually about 2.3, 2.2 million. This year we had 0.4 million, and that consists mostly of other conferences like the COVID-29 conference that we hosted, or seminar that we hosted. And then also we had local expenses of our own for the conference. For example, we have our own marketing expenses, our own, if we have stands, if we have traveling expenses, we have to pay our own traveling and accommodation and the like. So all in all, we made about 700,000 Rand gross profit from conferences this year, which is actually a little bit more than we usually make. The concern that we do have is we've been trying to offer conferences, other types of small seminars to members, and they are usually unpaid, but we've been trying to make them paid conferences. So it's not been going well. We have been at a lack of attendance on those conferences. So a good example is the COVID-29 conference, where we made a 70,000 Rand loss. The chapter is carrying that because it is actually a service that we need to offer our members, especially when COVID-19 came about. Which was a high point of 2018 and 2019. In terms of our operating expenses, we spent a little bit less than usual. One of our big expenses is often travel. We had less international travel, and we also had a lot less local travel, seeing as we have a few board members that are actually Cape Town based, and it helped the fact that the office was in Cape Town. Our office has also been relocated to Cape Town, which gives us a smallish saving on our rent. So that's also quite a saving. And then the annual general meeting was also, we had quite a big saving in terms of that. The venue was perhaps not as flashy as we normally had. And the type of AGM that we had last year was a smaller one because the board rotates every 2 years. And in that case, you have both boards at the AGM, and it's a much more important AGM, and it's a much bigger and a lot more travel that we need to cover. So operating expenses wise, it's decreased by 14%, and we're very pleased about that. And that's about it for the expenses. So all in all, the expenses slightly lower. What we do, just to emphasize, the regional and year-end events are still unpaid. Other organizations actually charge for regional events, and they also charge for year-end events. And we provided for that in the new budget as well. Just to also emphasize, we've been spending more on digital. We've also been spending on SAQA in terms of moving the chapter forward. One thing that we have to guard against is that we are a chapter, we're not a large corporate organization. And when we get going with SAQA, we're going to have to look at revenue streams to cover that, because it is quite involved, and it is quite a step up from just being a chapter. Then we're becoming a real business. In terms of the profit, we've had a profit again this year, and we're very pleased about that. Member dues went up. We can see there it's about almost 1.9 mil, whereas last year it was around 1.5. I see there are questions, and what I'll do is I'll keep a lookout for the questions. I'll just finish the budget component, and then I'll look at the questions. So member dues almost 1.9, whereas the previous year it was 1.5. Conference income, the conference income component that you can see there is mainly the grant, which worked well in our favor. Other income and expenses, mainly interest, it went up quite a lot. You can see the dip in the conference expenses because we didn't cover that, or we didn't have the real big conference this year. Same with operating expenses, we had a few savings there. Foreign exchange profit, profit before tax. So our profit before tax was actually, it's almost 1 million rands. Not intentional. I think it's a matter of just making good decisions in terms of how we manage the finances, and we're very pleased to have actually built up the reserves. And then the tax entries for the current year and the previous year was actually deferred tax. So it's not real tax. It's a bookkeeping entry. So in fact, we had quite a good year this year. So I'm just going to see what's happening in the chat. If you just bear with me. Okay, so I'm just reading. There's a question in the chat. Does the local chapter obtain preferred rates of exchange from the SA banks when USD funds are sent from the US? No, I'm not actually sure. We receive the normal. We bank with Nedbank, and Nedbank offers us a rate, and then we receive that. We accept or we decline that rate. The amounts that we transfer is not that big, so I doubt that we will be able to get those rates. I see actually Kenneth has answered that question. Yeah, okay, so I see that question's been answered. So another question is what is the value of the HQ account for SA? How is this recorded? The value of the account is normally quite high. So the Isaca International has a debtor system. So we see them as a debtor, they see us as a creditor. When a member pays an amount, it gets recorded in our account just like a normal debtor, and it lies there indefinitely until we can see the balance at any time. You can see it online. There is a system that we can log into and we can check. The balance is recorded every month in our accounts and translated at the prevailing exchange rate. So it's shown in our management accounts. If we find that we don't have enough local funds, then we put in a request to the United States, and within 2 weeks we will. I put in a request as the treasurer, and we have a board meeting on that, and we approve it at the board with a motivation, and then we transfer the money. It's normally about $50,000. It's not often not much more of that. This year has been different, and I'll explain when I come to the reserves. In terms of that, okay. So I'll move on now. So we made a profit, and our reserves are reserves. If you look at the right hand side, is 4.9, where it was previously 4.2 million for the previous year. So we've been growing quite steadily, and I'm sure the members will have a fright if you see what's the amount on the left hand side. What the two things happened this year. With the board has received a lot of suggestions. The debtor account in the US is not interest bearing, and it's also volatile. It's if the exchange rate changes. One year we post a R500,000 foreign exchange loss. The next year we post a R500,000 for profit. Foreign exchange profit, or even more, and it could even be in the millions, depending on how much the exchange rate differs. So we made a decision at the board meeting, after a lot of suggestions and consultation, to move some of the Isaca US account to South Africa, where we are going to put it into a net bank fixed deposit. It will be only 2 million rands. And we'll keep the rest in the money market account, and we won't draw from the Isaca USA account for some time. Now, so this is the picture as it was at 31 December. It's already shifting again back towards the Isaca USA account. The other reason why the Isaca USA account is zero is because we manage the revenue collection in terms of debtors billing for the members during this year for Africa CACs. So the Americans said that they were quite glad to handle invoicing, and for the conference, they have quite rigorous rules in terms of you don't pay, you don't come to the conference. It doesn't work that way always in South Africans. We know government departments struggle to pay if there isn't an actual service that has been delivered. There are other examples like that. It takes a while to do payments. So we said, we as South Africa, we are going to bill in rand. The members can actually just talk to us, and we'll send an invoice in rands to them. And we did all of the billings, which means that we collected the cash, and Isaca collected the payment or recovered the cash via our Isaca USA account. So that's why it's actually stating as 0. So we actually collected all the cash for the Africa Tax Conference, and they drew at the end of December against our reserve. So this amount of 5.2 that we have for cash is reducing steadily, and it's already reduced by quite a bit in favor of the Isaca USA account. But going forward, the idea is that we'll have at least 2 million rands in a fixed deposit. We don't want more in a fixed deposit because then it becomes a big job to actually manage cash flow all the time. We often need to make million-rand payments, for example, to Saturn Convention Center or any of the other big venues that host our conferences. So I'm going to just check the chat. There's a question, what percentage of SA chapter members of the chapter are South Africans? I'm not sure. I think maybe Kenneth can answer that. Kenneth and Arlene. I would imagine all of them are. Okay, so Kenneth will answer in the chat, and he's checking on that because there are obviously other African chapters. So if we just look at this slide, the item that I'm quite happy about is the fact that our total net reserves are now 4.9 mil. Just a final comment. One of the benefits of actually not having too much exposure in the United States is obviously that we are not exposed too much to the forex movements, and also the secondary benefit is we can actually earn interest. Now we come to an important point. We developed a budget in December, it looked very much like a normal year. We emphasized some of the increases in digital spend, and we had our normal strategies that we were following. But then COVID-19 happened, and we decided that we've got no option but to update the budget, and that's the budget that we're going to present just now. The issues that we were working with is that the rand weakened quite a bit. It didn't have that much impact on us, except for the fact that it actually just talked to we are actually considering bringing even more money from the US to South Africa to catch the rand and to actually ensure that we don't have a reversal of forex profits that we've made before that. Membership collection was largely unaffected because the period of membership collection was October to March, and the COVID epidemic or the effect of COVID started more or less in March. The big difference that I'll explain just now, if you look at the figures, we're going virtual. Virtual conference will be held. There's a lot less physical activities like regional meetings, AGM meetings, strategy meetings. There's a lot of emphasis on websites. We're increasing our digital spend. We have webinars. We have our virtual conference, obviously, that we're doing. We did make provision to have the year-end events in a physical format, so we're holding thumbs for that. Our staff are working from home at the moment. They are coping. It's working well. And then there's a little bit of lower office expenses, and we're actually maintaining our donation levels. So an example of how digital we have become is Esther is actually working from Citrusdal the last 2 months. So she's been quite happily working very far from the office. So let me just move on and show you the budget. So essentially, the budget that we're going to ask for approval from the members is it's again a zero-based budget. So we always provide for a budget that breaks even. And even though the previous few years we also provided for a break-even budget. A lot of our fortunes comes from savings that we had or foreign exchange profits that we make. So essentially what we've done is we've kept member dues at 1.8 million again, just to be prudent, because we don't know what the exchange rate can actually do. Also the system that we're working with is sometimes a bit late, but we were happy to say that we're going to be prudent and say we're keeping it at 1.8 million in terms of the budget. Conference income is an interesting one, because we were discussing at the board meeting how much can you charge for a virtual conference. So we came to we were thinking about actually giving up to an 80% discount in terms of the conference. So that is something that we've been very prudent about in terms of our budget. We said let's just provide for a break-even conference budget, and then park this year because it's not a normal year, and then we continue with our normal operations during the next year. So we've put in the budget a conservative 220,000 rands for conference income, and we have 163,000 rands in expenses that we put in. So there's not a lot of expenses. There's not as much expenses if we're doing a virtual conference. There's actually a lot of savings to be had, because our biggest expenses are actually the venue, catering, audio visual, the stage, traveling, and international traveling, and so on. So we're in a position actually where we can actually save a lot on international travel, and we can also get some speakers, international speakers, for next to nothing to attend or to present at our conference. Some of the other income and expenses that we have there, we are providing for a lot more interest, because we now have a lot more of our reserves locally. Operating expenses, we're expecting to move back to normal levels. So in terms of our operating expense budget, we did budget for digital initiatives of 180,000 rands, and that also includes some of the software work that we need to do on our website. So we're going to move that quite aggressively, and that's one of our strategies, and we've progressively over the years moved money from other areas into digital spending. And then again, foreign exchange profit, we don't know. We normally provide for a zero. I'm going to just check the chat. Okay, so Kenneth is going to explain about the memberships. So he's saying it's a complex answer. Okay, so there's a comment also to say that okay, if members are mostly South African, then it costs us more to be members. It's that is unfortunately true, and we're always cognizant of that. Fortunately, what I've seen is that the rand has strengthened the last few days, so we are starting to move more or less in the territory where we were during the early stages of the COVID epidemic. So there is signs that the exchange rate is improving. Okay, so I think I'll hand over to Kenneth. Kenneth, do you want to look at the voting right now? Are there any questions in the chat that anybody wants to post? So I'm actually looking at the chat right now.
Thanks, Francois, for the update in terms of financials. Did you show the budget for 2020?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I
Oh, it's
was
in the middle, yes.
okay. No, because I was busy looking at the chat and trying to get an answer for Francois. I kind of missed the budget part. So perhaps I don't see many questions in the chat. So let me try to explain or answer Francois' question in terms of what percentage of our members are South African. So I did a quick look at the information. So it's very difficult, and the answer is, it's very difficult to say whether they are South Africans or not. What happens with membership is when you become a member of Isaca, you select the chapter that's most convenient for you to attend. So in the South African context, we have some members from Swaziland. We have some members from Lesotho, because those two areas don't have their own chapters. We used to have members that live and reside and work in Zimbabwe, but once Zimbabwe created their own chapter, those members moved out of the South Africa chapter and into the Zimbabwe chapter. So I had a quick look at the member roster, and another complexity in terms of the member roster, and that's the reason why it's very important that members keep their information up to date, is that when I filtered in terms of home city, 33 members showed a home city that was not in South Africa. So like I mentioned, Swaziland, Lesotho, there was even one there from Netherlands and things and the like. So 33 out of our membership, which is sitting at about 2,207 at the moment, equates to just over 1%. Yeah. And again, we cannot tell whether those individuals are South African citizens, because one of the data points that we do not collect is ID number. And going forward with SAQA, that's one of the fields that we will need to start collecting. Hence, Francois mentioned the investment in terms of infrastructure to be able to start collecting local information, which we will need to provide to SAQA on a regular basis. We we had discussions with International in terms of collecting some of that data on our behalf, because remember, when you register as a member, you register on the Isaca Global platform. Now, the challenge is they said that they were not in a position to assist us in terms of collecting that data, because due to GDPR, they were actually starting to collect less data around, less personal data from members. Consequently, in order to address the requirements for SAQA, we are now building a database, and we constantly will be merging information received from Isaca HQ and then supplementing that information with information that we collect from members here locally in South Africa. So hopefully that answers your question. Happy to discuss any follow-up if need be.
And also the annual report has been posted in the chat just now, the link, and there's an awful lot of information on there.
Yes, thanks, Francois. So like Francois mentioned, you know, on our Engage platform, you have access to all of this financial information as well as the annual report. So you will be able to access some information there. And then if you have any queries, even beyond this meeting, you're welcome to send your questions to our email address, info@isaca.org.za. And then, the relevant director for that portfolio will prepare a response and reply to your email. So Zunaid asked, can anyone apply for SDIPSI? And strangely enough, that's how you pronounce it. And so obviously there's requirements for the new certification. And so at the moment, it's open for what they call a grandfathering period. So between now and March next year, you can apply to get that certification on that basis without writing an exam, provided you meet certain criteria. So the cost is quite substantial. It's $645 US, plus a $50 administrative charge. If you apply and you are unsuccessful, they will refund the $645 US, but not the $50. So it's very important that even before you apply, please ensure that you make sure that you meet the qualifying criteria. Yeah, so again, in terms of the qualifying criteria, you could be an IT auditor, you could be an IT risk professional, because if you look at the criteria for SDIPSI, one of the domains talks to IT governance. So you'll find that you would already have covered a substantial amount of the curriculum of the SDIPSI certification. There's one element there which talks to the management of databases relating specifically to privacy. So, even without your having experience in that regard, you could still potentially apply for certification. Once the grandfathering process ends in March next year, they will roll out the exam material. So much like your CISM, your C-Risk, your C-Guide, you will be able to get a manual, study for the exam, write the exam, meet the 5-year experience requirements, and then again apply for the certification. Again, if you have any follow-up questions, please post them in the chat and I'll get to that. So the next question. Yeah, well, it seems like I've taken care of all the questions. So just a reminder that, if you still have questions, post them in the chat. We'll try to address them now. If you think of anything or you're going through the annual report or the financials and you have a question at a later stage, send those questions to info@isaca.org.za and we will respond to that. So next up in terms of the agenda is the approvals. So Francois, could you share the approval, the polling questions? Yes. So you need to just go one back, Francois. So Rowan is going to be assisting me in terms of taking the poll. In terms of what we need to approve at the annual general meeting, there are basically 3 questions. Rowan, could you share the first poll question? And this deals with approval of the annual financial statements for 2019. Yeah, and yes, please vote in terms of that. We're currently sitting at about 20% of people that have voted. We'll let us run for a couple more minutes because we're still sitting at about 62%. %69. So we're still at 74%. So if you haven't voted as yet, please vote in the next 30 seconds. So, if you did not approve the financial statements, could you post a question in the chat box and I could perhaps, take any questions in terms of why you did not approve. Okay, so we're sitting at about 78% now that have voted. I'm going to be closing the poll or asking Rowan to close the poll on auditing of approval of the audited financial statements. Okay. Rowan, can you share the next polling question, please? So the next question is, do you approve the 2020 budget? So I'm just going to keep this poll open for the next 10 more seconds, and then we will close this. We're currently sitting at 75% that have voted. Okay, thanks, Rowan. You can end this poll and we can move to the next and last polling question or area for approval. And this is, do you approve Nexia, SAB&T as the external auditors for the 2020 financial year? Okay, I'm going to give it about another 5 more seconds, and then we can also end the voting in this area. Thanks, Rowan. You can close the polling now. Thank you, everybody, for voting in terms of the different areas that needed to be voted on. I see that there are a couple of other questions in the chat. So firstly, Tito asks, why are there costs to members for the annual conference? I'm not sure how you get to cost to members, but for the annual conference, there would be an income as well as cost to have or host the annual conference. Perhaps you could provide me with more clarity in terms of how you, or what do you consider cost to members? And then the next question is there a rotation process for the external auditors? So that is indeed a good question. We haven't really discussed rotation as yet because SAB and Nextyear have, I think this is only their second audit of our financial statements. Yeah, and what happened was prior to SAB and T next year, Mazars were our external auditors, and yeah. Yeah, so it's something we'll definitely consider in terms of putting into our processes, something to consider around what period needs to take place until we decide on rotating of external auditors. If I'm not mistaken, the requirement is.
So we'll look for the audit committee on guidance on that.
Yeah, thanks, Francois. I was trying to find those words. Yeah, so in terms of, Romeo asked that, I think the poll regarding the external audit is a bit confusing simply because by appointing the board, the members are entrusting the board with that decision. So again, certain decisions, so, we came up, the board came up with the budget, for example, but we need the members through the annual general meeting to ratify those decisions. And hence we post those questions there.
And also what's happening right now is our requirements in terms of the memorandum of incorporation. So these are all legal requirements, the voting.
Yeah, so I think that's it in terms of questions. Again, if you have any follow-up questions, we can now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the thank you from Arlene. So over to you, Arlene.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. I wonder if I can ask the 2018 to 2020 Board of Directors, if I can put you on the spot and ask you to show your cameras, if you are willing. So it should put us in the top of the screen if we go to gallery view. Here we go. I see Francois. Okay.
I think you probably need to say something to get to the top of the screen.
Okay. So if the board members can maybe just show their cameras and then say something. Good afternoon. Rudairo, you're on mute.
Good afternoon to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Am I visible?
You are visible. There we have Titch. Hello, Titch. Good afternoon, Mukhadi. Hello.
Hello everyone.
So I think if you go to gallery view, you would be able to see us all. My message is very short and sweet. I just want to say thank you to the 2018 to 2020 Board of Directors. The connections and the bonds and the friendships that we have formed is priceless and precious. Please stay connected and keep in touch. Under normal circumstances, we would be all dressed up and we would be on a stage and we would be handing over certificates of service. Unfortunately, in these circumstances, we will be posting certificates of service and a little gift as well. But I just really want to appreciate you and acknowledge the contribution to the chapter, that you've made over the last 2 years. We've come a long way and we've had so many great times and great achievements, from sitting on the sand in Milnerton Beach to going to the Durbanville Rose Garden to year-end functions. I mean, the memories are endless. So I just want to appreciate you and thank you for everything that you've done for the chapter on behalf of the members. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you so much, and stay in touch and keep involved. Thank you. Thank you, Kenneth. Back to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aline.
Thanks for the leadership, and thank you to the membership and those who supported us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aline. So next up on the agenda is the announcement of the 2020 to 2022 board. And I'd like to ask Winston Hayden, who's the chair of the nominations committee, to perhaps take over. So over to you, Winston.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Winston. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, let's go ahead. Right, so I think just to start off with, I'd just like to congratulate and commend Arlene and the board and all the staff for the wonderful work they've been doing this last year. Sterling job, well done. I'm proud to be a chapter member at this moment. Just to give you a bit of a background about the nominations committee, the purpose of the nominations committee is firstly to ensure that the selection of board member nominees is fair and appropriate, and that nominated members are suitable to and fit to hold office. And secondly, to oversee the whole election process. Now, the nominations committee is totally independent of the current board. The nominations committee is made up of myself, a former chapter president, Max Blecher, a former treasurer and board member, Yonanda Olafia, and a former board member, Naeem Sidat. And what we do is we look at all the nominations to see if they qualify as a board member. Some of the qualification criteria is to be a continuous member for a minimum of 3 years. She must be in good standing with no outstanding membership fees. They need to hold at least one Isaca qualification, being the C System, C Guide, C Risk. And the person needs to fulfill any credits and verification checks. And I think most importantly is they need to be willing to commit time to the Isaca chapter. It's an enormous amount of hours and work and effort that they need to put in. That's what they need to be cognizant of. So without further ado, I would like to announce the new chapter board. President is Arlene Lynn-Fulming. The Vice President is Kenneth Palliam. Your Treasurer is Francois Leroux. Chapter Secretary is Carolyn Chalmers. The Academic Relations and Education Director is Edmore Taruvinga. Certifications and Training Director, Mavangu Luvusha. Marketing and Membership Director, Mohammed Osman. Digital Security and Communications Director is Terence Fogarty. The Johannesburg Regional Director is Gabo Rabebela. The KZN Regional Director, Nolan Nadesan. The Western Cape and Eastern Cape Regional Director is Robin Williams. And the past president remains Tichona Zororo. The position for the regional, Pretoria Regional Director is vacant, and the chapter board will make, the incoming chapter board will make a decision on that. So there we have it. Congratulations and all the best to new board directors.
Thanks, Winston, for your overview in terms of the process that was followed in terms of electing the new board, as well as highlighting the level of interaction and commitment that's required from board members. I'm just having a look at the chat to see if there are any questions that I can respond to. So in terms of the next point on the agenda, which was meant to be our virtual wine tasting, was we have not received the video in terms of the virtual wine tasting. So what we will do is we will post that video on our YouTube channel, and you can have a look at that over the weekend. And yeah, so like I said, the virtual wine tasting will not be taking place now as originally planned. And if there are no questions, Sekela is asking, how does the virtual wine tasting work? So essentially, it's merely a video where someone would describe the process of tasting and what to look for when tasting wine. Yeah, so like I said, once we do have that video, we'll post it on our YouTube channel. And yeah, thank you everybody for your attendance. We had quite a number of members join, particularly for a Friday afternoon. And we look forward to interacting with you over the next 2 years as the new board of Isaca South Africa. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.